Hello. Today we are going to discuss about the producer and consumer from and using trade. And our aim is to program as the C#.NET program, which we use to producer and consumer using the concept of thread. Thread is a small logical unit which will use an application for each thread execution. For example, running, throws, exceptions, and finally it will goes. And the producer will form to consume the procedure which will go in. And in the producer consumer, it will send a message to create a message to producers and consume the message for the sending to the message. Here we are going to discuss about the producer and consumer problem. Experiment number This is experiment number 8, which are using for producer and consumer. So here we are create a class test, and we have to using a static for producer consumer queue. Queue is a set of logical or unit for starting the thread and stopping the thread, which will use the queue, and it will use for starting the new producer consumer problem, and it will use for running the application for starting the producer and stop for the consumer problem. So here we have to use our main function, and it will use a consumer queue, new producer consume. So it will create a new thread, and thread will be started from consume job start. So here the random function random, and it will initialize the for loop, and which will use to I is equals to 10 and I is equals to incremented by the value of the producer function. So it will be used to producing. So here the thread is sleep. I initialize there some value here, and we have to static consumer job. So random rank for the consumer job, and initialize that the for loop function, and object will create for the queue which will be consumed, and it will be writing from the consume sleep and thread dot sleep. So here I run the program for and producer consumer. This is a class form randomly object list lock, and queue will be formed for produce, and lock will list, and queue and enqueue. Queue means we have to increment the function which will produce, and it will consume for the enqueue form. So queue will be incremented and queue will be decremented form. It will be also raise a pulse. It queue wasn't empty before the otherwise it will add the several times, which will use to stop that's why they will be enqueue the. So here will be object queue lock list. So in lock list form, this will be the enqueue with the empty which will added, while loop will be provided. So it will add a pulse with another thread which will come in and consume, and a newly added object. So it will be a monitor which will show the list log we return queue and dot dq. So here this will return the queue function and the dq function for the producer and consumer using thread. So here I run the program. So this will be produced by 0 and consumed to 3. So up to 10 I have to provide. So here if we increment it, so it will go to the producing and consuming function. So here is that the continually processed by the producer and consuming problem, which will using the thread and synchronizations part. So our aim is to the benefits of the multiple threads of application for each thread executes. So here I just the syntax for the public consumer queue. This is a syntax, and for the sample code for the pseudo code of the program, and the producer and consumer. Producer means the producer multitask handle or concurrent of the program, and while the process of thread multitasking deals with concurrent executions for the pieces of same program. So it will be executed a .NET framework. There are the two type of .NET frameworks of the foreground and background. In foreground we have to using for the function which will initialize it, and the background will be the declaration part. So here is the program which will run I, and this is a program for producer and consumer function using synchronization thread and synchronization part.